Sometimes a supporting side character can just be so memorable, from the small part they played in the story to the sheer memorability of their design and character. And that brings me to today's characters. Yakuza 3's Shigeru Nakahara, an often overlooked character in Yakuza 3, but I adore him. However, I'm not just talking about him today, no ho ho. You see, to get to the point, Nakahara's back Irizumi is none other than the Shisha, the guardian lion dog deity of Okinawa culture. And that Shisha, the first time I saw that design in Yakuza 3, reminded me of another character from my childhood. Yes, that being King Caesar from the Godzilla franchise. You see, King Caesar first appeared in 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, a film that, while it did debut Godzilla's great iconic foe Mechagodzilla, it also introduced another new monster, that being King Caesar. For you see, around that time in Japan, Okinawa finally was reintegrated back into being part of Japan. That only happened in 1972. And just 2 years later, Toho, the creators and owners of Godzilla, thought they might as well capitalize on that by making a film set in Okinawa and creating a new monster based on culture from there. Hence, King Caesar, who is a core part of the plot, as the human cast has to find his statue and awaken him so he can help fend off Mechagodzilla because they think Godzilla was defeated. It's a really interesting plot, a good adventure with beautiful scenery, much like how Yakuza 3 has gorgeous scenery of Okinawa that you, the player, get to explore personally as Kiryu. So today, to make it more fun and talking about Shigeru Nakahara's Irizumi, I'm also going to incorporate King Caesar, because Toho just won't celebrate that guy's 50th anniversary this year, but me, here at Tiger Drop Films, you know I'm gonna. So sit back, relax, and join me for this nice, quick, and relaxing video on two great supporting characters that I adore. Now, King Caesar's original appearance in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is still practically his only major role in the series besides some cameos. But I think it makes sense, because much like Yakuza 3, these characters pertain to Okinawa itself, so they don't have to be everywhere. Alas, King Caesar was the royal guardian of the Azumi family in Okinawa, so in particular he was only there really just to protect this family lineage. Hence, the song you hear in the background, which is from the film, as the latest descendant of the family, she had to sing a certain song that would help summon King Caesar. But not only that, he can only appear under certain circumstances, adhering to a prophecy. And this idea of King Caesar only appearing under a certain circumstance, I think actually helps give some insight to Nakahara as a character. Since in Yakuza 3 his Irizumi is the Shisha, and one thing I really like is that you don't fully see his Irizumi until that legendary bullfighting arena scene, but I'll get to that in a little bit, and you'll see why. So Nakahara, he's the captain, the patriarch of the Ryudo family, a very, very small Yakuza family, and Ryukyu going against the Tamashiro family, which is far larger, because of course the bad guys have more numbers than the good guys. And over the course of Yakuza 3, we're introduced to Mikio and Rikia, who work for Nakahara. And Nakahara is this really nice looking guy. As you can see, when he first appears, he says, "Sorry to keep you waiting." He's a gentleman, he's a nice grandpa kind of guy. He's really low key, and he just looks so friendly. And he pretty much is Kiryu's landlord to the orphanage that Kiryu is currently looking at, Morning Glory. And I just kind of like this dynamic they have. Kiryu and Nakahara maybe aren't super friendly at first, since as we get to see as the whole plot of Yakuza 3 unfolds. Full-on spoilers ahead, by the way. Over the course of the story, Nakahara and Kiryu both develop so much respect for each other. As it turns out, they're both, well, fathers. You see, Nakahara, to put it simply, is a nice parallel to Kiryu himself, just at a much older age. Who knows, maybe at the current point in the Yakuza timeline, Kiryu can take the role of Nakahara, so to speak. But anyway, I like that over the course of Yakuza 3, while Nakahara doesn't have a bunch of screen time compared to, say, Rikia, I love the role he fills in the story. He's that comforting old man presence, that grandpa sort of presence and dynamic of this new family that Kiryu's developing, along with all the orphans he's taken under his wing, along with his adopted daughter, Haruka. And I think the dynamic of Kiryu and Haruka that helped forge this series in the first place comes into play with Nakahara as he looks after Saki, this girl who's apparently mute due to childhood trauma. And after the fight where Kiryu defeats Tamashiro at his office and we get to see Saki's birth mother, we get to see just how vile some kids' birth parents can be, in the case of Saki's mother being so apprehensive and horrible towards her. It's really a terrible thing to hear, but Nakahara and Rikia and Kiryu are there to kind of shut her down as she storms off, and it really is a gut-punching scene. However, we really get to see a nice moment where earlier in the story we learn that Saki loves to draw. She may not be able to speak currently, but she loves to draw, to express herself. And during the same scene in the office, Kiryu tells Nakahara to look at her art book, and he does. He finally looks at it, and wouldn't you know it, Saki drew a nice cute portrait of him saying, "Thank you for looking after me." It's so sweet, and Kiryu helps reaffirm to Nakahara that blood doesn't matter, and that Nakahara can be her father now. It's very sweet, and as I'm sure you've heard a million times, it ties into the overall plot and themes of Yakuza 3, but it's still poignant, and I think it still hits really hard for the audience. And the overall sunset aesthetic of Yakuza 3 certainly helps bring home that homey feeling. I love how Nakahara is able to bring out a different side to Kiryu. As I previously mentioned, it allows Kiryu to help himself be there for others struggling with a family dynamic or taking on the responsibility of adopting a kid. It's just really nice because I think Yakuza 3 is a treasure trove of wonderful moments of Kiryu and Haruka alike looking after these kids and other adults, hence Nakahara and the Ryudo family. And later on, we get a nice scene where Nakahara tries to make Kiryu become his sworn brother after this scene in the office because they just have so much respect for each other. It's nice, it's funny, and I like it. And of course, Nakahara turns out to be part of the larger plot between the land development of Okinawa. You know what I mean, whether there's going to be a military base or a resort built on the land that Kiryu is currently on. Hence why Nakahara is Kiryu's landlord, and that's how the plot develops with Daigo and all that, Richardson, and a bunch of shooting. And tied back into his Irizumi, Nakahara has flowers around him that are signative of Okinawa's environment, and his Irizumi of the Shisha is just a nice light cyan blue with a slightly more tan, yellowish orange color highlighting the fur on the Shisha. And what's really cool is that you get to see the Shisha statues everywhere. You see it at Morning Glory. I think that's the important part. That with Morning Glory, you already see Shisha statues, which are indicative that Nakahara was there watching over them. And even when we get that really hard to watch cutscene later where Tamashiro and Mine tear down Morning Glory, and Nakahara, who is still recovering from being shot by Richardson earlier, still tries to defend, although he just can't. He's not strong enough. It's heartbreaking, but everything that happens in that scene. But I think it's building up Nakahara's big moment later. Like I said, you get to see Shisha statues everywhere, just like in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Even though King Caesar doesn't appear to the final battle, you see his statues everywhere. They're pivotal to the plot and to the landscape and the caves of Okinawa's long culture. So, when we get to that big bullfighting arena of Tamashiro, and by the way, Tamashiro is an ugly bastard who wears red like that, and it makes sense that, like, why would you wear red in a ring full of bulls? But anyway, Nakahara gets his big moment when he's trying to fend off the bulls. It looks like he's losing, and then Saki, she speaks. She calls him father. It's such a emotionally moving scene. I don't even think I have to explain it to you. You know what I mean. It hits the heartstrings, and Nakahara, wouldn't you know it, shows off his back Irizumi in classic Yakuza style, and finds the strength to truly fend off the bulls and do some incredible physical strength. Like, it's just peak Yakuza, man. And we finally get to see the King Caesar Irizumi, so to speak, on his back in full glory as he finds his strength despite his current limitations from just not even being in the hospital earlier. It's amazing. Nakahara, we get to see what a true good man he is, what a good father he is, and he wants to defend Saki, and I think that's the point. He gets that surge of adrenaline after knowing he has to show up, and that's why I love just Nakahara as a character. And that moment is just one of those Yakuza moments that plays rent-free in my head whenever I think about Yakuza 3, and I love it. And how's this tie into King Caesar? Well, after he gets summoned by the last descendant of the Azumi family with an amazing song that is a highlight of that film, he erupts out of his cave and he's ready to fend off Mechagodzilla. And an interesting parallel that is just, yeah, I mean, it's a coincidence, but both Nakahara and King Caesar, they're not really going to be a big help in the actual fight, but they do their part. They may not be a straight up tag team partner, but they do their part helping the main hero, whether that be Kiryu or Godzilla. And yeah, I know it's funny knowing that later on in the Godzilla franchise there'd be a Mechagodzilla named Kiryu, but anyway, the point still stands. Nakahara, King Caesar are there to help and have their own moment that is memorable against these antagonists. And as we see in the course of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla's final battle on the outskirts of Okinawa, we get to see King Caesar and Godzilla try to take on Mechagodzilla, and he gets a few moments where King Caesar is able to reflect Mechagodzilla's space eye beam back at him. That's a really cool ability. Kind of ties into King Caesar being a protector. He just reflects danger back as he's trying to protect this royal family of Okinawa. And it's a great fight. Then we see Godzilla himself finish off Mechagodzilla by using his magnetic powers that he trained for. It's really cool that Godzilla got to train for that ability earlier in the film. And then he's able to pull Mechagodzilla down and tear his head off. It's amazing. And then of course there's a big explosion. And while we don't really get a moment of Godzilla and King Caesar like acknowledging each other as the fight ends, I think King Caesar just being that deity, that god that just has to go back and rest, is fitting enough. And if you just look at Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, the dreamy sunsets of Okinawa on the cruise, when the cast is heading to Okinawa, it's amazing. And the whole plot of aliens trying to fight over his statues so he doesn't come back to life is a really interesting plot. And the fact that this film opens with a montage of Okinawa's beauty, its natural architecture, its culture, and sure, it may just be a way for Toho to market that Okinawa is back and people can go there for tourism. I still think that if you're going to do tourism, why not tie it back into an actual part of this culture? And that's where King Caesar comes to play. The opening titles are all about his statues and the beauty of Okinawa, and then fitting enough, the final closing shot of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is none other than, well, a Shisha statue, as it says, the end. And I just think that's a fitting part. Sure, King Caesar may not be a monster that can appear a bunch in Godzilla, as it makes sense, he's tied to a very specific part of Okinawa, but I still think that a character could be so memorable that they don't have to appear a lot, and while maybe they don't do a whole lot in their own film, I think just the significance of having a unique design that ties it to a real life piece of art, I think is enough to make a character stand on their own. And to tie it back into Shigeru Nakahara, I think that he is a highlight of Yakuza 3, and the Shisha is a creature that doesn't need to appear all the time, just when it really counts. And in the context of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, that's what King Caesar did. He appeared just when he really needed to hold off Mechagodzilla for the Big G himself to come save the day. Much like in Yakuza 3, Nakahara held off the bulls just long enough for Kiryu to come save the day. And while yes, in Yakuza 3, that same bull fighting arena scene leads to a very heartbreaking moment with a certain other character, I think it stands that Yakuza 3 is a game about the bonds of being a father and looking out for the little guys against all these horrible figures, and just really finding that human connection against the loneliness. And I think, looking back, Nakahara exemplifies that. And while I wish he appeared more in the franchise, I can at least rest knowing that he was a very pivotal part of Yakuza 3's themes, in addition to growing Kiryu himself as a character. And if you liked how I talked about Nakahara in this video, you can check out this old video of mine where I talked about Joji Kazama, another part of Yakuza 3's characters and story. In addition, if you like this sort of analysis and tying Yakuza 3's Okinawa setting to scenes from kaiju films, well, check out this video about scenes from kaiju movies and relation to Yakuza's virtual tourism. And, well, I think that about does it for this video. May have been a smaller one, a more low-key one, but Okinawa seems to be a low-key place. And it's a place I really want to visit in the future when I finally get the chance to travel abroad. And suffice to say, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed my signature spotlight on lesser-known Yakuza characters. And, well, happy 50th anniversary, King Caesar, or King Shisha, however you want to refer to him as. I'm sorry that Toho didn't include you in the latest Godzilla short film, but hell, I'm happy I'm able to give you the spotlight you deserve today. It's just a joy to talk about two series that I love, Yakuza and Godzilla. So, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to let me know in the comments what you thought about these characters and if you have any relation to them, because I'm sure that if you play Yakuza games, then you're probably gonna watch movies too, and I'm sure you've probably seen some Godzilla movies yourself, huh? Thank you guys for watching. Please check out my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.